Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today we have a guest, David Black of the Green Party, and he's going to talk about the great things he's done in the past, he's doing right now, and what he's going to do in the future. So welcome to the podcast, David.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We're glad to have you. Let us get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
Okay, I'm currently a retired attorney. I do pro bono work through our local legal aid organization. I'm a longtime Illinois Green Party member. I was the candidate for Attorney General in 2006 and again in 2010, and then I was the Senate candidate in 2020.
Interesting. So what type of law do you practice?
Well, when I was actively practicing, I was part of a group that provided free legal services to auto workers as one of their fringe benefits. But after retirement, I've exclusively practiced in the area of sealing and expunging criminal records so people can get jobs and housing.
Oh, good. That sounds like that's good work that helps the community out.
Yeah, it's very gratifying.
So when you ran for Attorney General, how did you envision, if you won the race, that you would implement a green vision?
Well, I ran as part of a team, and our governor candidate was really the policy setter. His name was Rich Whitney. He was a great at formulating policies. I don't really believe I had a chance of winning. I was running against one of the most popular longtime attorney generals, so I didn't have to come up with specific vision. I was mostly interested in building the party, and we had a tremendously successful year in 2006. There were only 3 candidates on the ballot, and the 2 governor candidates were were not good candidates, to say the least. They both had amazing flaws, and Rich Whitney was this very articulate attorney and campaigned very hard. And in Illinois, if you get over 5% of the vote, you become what's called an established party. An established party means that you don't have to get a massive number of signatures to get on the ballot for the next election. You just have to get the same number as the other established parties, which are really the Democrats and the Republicans. In Illinois, you have to have 21,000 valid signatures to be to get on the ballot, and that means you really have to collect at least 40,000, which we were able to do prior to 2006 through a massive effort. But in 2010, we had a much easier route to the ballot, the same one that Democrats and Republicans had. Illinois is a very difficult state to get on the ballot for a third party.
So in 2010, you were on the ballot because of the prior election good showing.
Exactly. Although we did have to get a very limited number of signatures, the same as the Democrats and Republicans, but we didn't have this massive number that we needed.
That's good. Good for you. You got progress there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think we ran a better campaign in 2010, but instead of it being a 3-way race, it was a 5-way race. There was a multimillionaire who entered as an independent, and the libertarians were also on the ballot. And so the dissatisfaction with the Democrats and Republicans was so splintered that we did not get the 5%, and then we were back to the having to rebuild and become as a third party and get the massive signature requirement. So we did not run a governor candidate in 2014. because we didn't get the required number of signatures.
So what lessons did you learn from running these races?
Well, I certainly learned that that even people who consider themselves Democrats and Republicans are open to the idea that there should be increased competition. I think we also learned the lesson that's a nationwide lesson, which we actually knew, which is that the two-party monopoly have kind of rigged the system, both in terms of the need for massive numbers of signatures for anyone who's not already established party, and also because they pull the lesser of two evil cards. So when you seem to be doing very well at the last minute, people say, well, gee, if I vote for the Green Party, then the Republicans will get in, and I don't like the Democrats, but I hate the Republicans worse. This certainly happened in the last election because people, I think, were legitimately afraid of Trump getting reelected. So the system is really rigged, and unless we can have some fundamental changes like instant runoff voting and other changes where people can actually vote their preference, it's going to be very difficult for third parties to succeed.
So how do you think we should put in instant runoff voting? Do you think you should do it by the state level or by the local level or national level, or how do you think we should go about doing that?
I think like everything else, it's good to start locally, and some localities are doing it, and some states have now done it, and if it catches on, then it can move nationally. It's not necessarily a panacea, but it would eliminate this lesser of two evil argument that is so damaging to third parties.
Sure.
And our position has always been the lesser of two evil is still an evil, and if someone is running who shares all of your values, doesn't it make sense to vote for them? And that resonates with some people, but not everyone.
True, yeah. Some people get it, some people don't.
Yeah.
So since you've run these races, what tips do you have for people who may be starting out, maybe running their first election or their second election?
Well, they certainly have to run as part of a team. We did very well when we had a full slate running for statewide office, where we could spread the work, spread the message, support the top of the ticket. And the other thing is that it is often good to start locally. We have elected Greens. We now have a Green mayor of a city in Illinois. We had a Green long time on the city council in southern Illinois. And sometimes nonpartisan races work, although it's a little harder to get a Green message. You can just get a platform message. So there are ways to start, and in many ways it pays to start at the lowest level possible, and then get some experience. We've had candidates elected to park district boards, and that's one way of building a party.
Sure. So what city got the Green mayor?
You know, it's downstate Illinois, and it's not on the tip of my tongue. The city councilwoman was from Carbondale, where we had a strong local built around Southern Illinois University.
Sure. So what activities are you currently doing, the Green Party of Illinois and yourself?
Well, after the Senate race, which was very time-consuming, I've taken a few steps back. I'm still on what's called the coordinating committee that meets once a month and sets policies for the party, but I'm not contemplating any further runs for office, and I'm not taking a real active role in the party, but I certainly haven't stepped all the way back.
Sure. So the coordinating committee, you say, does what?
Well, it sets the party has membership meetings, which are the fundamental decision making of the party, but that only meets the membership only meets as a whole twice a year. In between then, we have a steering committee, a coordinating committee that makes decisions on a basis between those meetings, and then we also have an executive committee that in between the coordinating committee meetings can make certain decisions. So it's a structure that's not uncommon, where
Sure.
you obviously can't have twice a year membership meeting make every decision for the party, because things are going to come up in the interim. The membership does make all the important decisions, such as who the candidates would be.
And the coordinating committee and the executive committee make more internal decisions? Is that how it works?
More internal decisions, but sometimes policy decisions if we need to take a stand on something or decide if we're going to join as a coalition with some other group in some kind of an event, things that of those natures.
Sure. And how did you get on the coordinating committee? What was that process like?
Basically, you just have to be a member in good standing for a certain period of time and express interest in doing so. It's not a very high bar, and we encourage people who have interest and have been members for a certain period of time. I don't have that off the top of my head, to join and help make day-to-day decisions in between the membership meetings.
So what led you to the Green Party in the first place? When did that happen, and how did you get there? What decisions did you make?
Well, we can go back to the late 1970s. I was a third-party candidate for the Ann Arbor City Council. We ran as a team of 5 candidates and actually elected 2 of them on what was then called the Human Rights Party, and it was a third party. It was on the ballot. Was on the ballot statewide, as a matter of fact. And I have consistently voted for third parties for the last, 50 years.
Wow. So the Human Rights Party, that was pretty similar to the Green Party?
It was pretty similar, but it was, and it ended up being affiliated somewhat with, I believe it was the Peace and Freedom Party. Dr. Spock ran for president.
Okay.
So we're talking real old history, but we mostly concentrated on local races where we were successful in our first council election, getting 2 members in, and then the second time we got 1 member in, and she actually preceded Harvey Milk as the first openly gay person elected to public office. She's not as famous as Harvey Milk, but she did precede him and was elected to city council as being openly gay.
Oh my, Illinois was the trendsetter.
This was Michigan.
Oh, Michigan. Okay, you were living in Michigan then.
Yeah, I was attending the University of Michigan grad school.
Okay. So you, in addition to your law degree, you got a graduate degree?
Yeah, I have a PhD in political science from the University of Michigan. I was a college professor for a very short period of time before I went to law school, and I can assure your listeners I am a better lawyer than I was as a college professor.
Interesting. So I take it, did your political science studies influence your activism?
I think it was the other way around.
Okay.
That my activism drew me to study political science, although I mostly studied international politics. But you have to do some of them. You have to do a little of everything.
So what did you do your thesis and your dissertation on?
I did it on political theory. So it was theoretical.
What theory specifically?
Well, it was an analysis of the role of the peasantry in the Chinese, Russian, and European revolutions. So it was very broad, which is what they tell you not to do when you write a dissertation. But I don't necessarily follow the advice of the pundits. So it was covered 3 countries, hundreds of years, whereas you generally want to be very specific so that nobody else knows anything about the topic except you.
So with your work for expunging people's records, what do people need to know about that? Some people may be afraid of criminals. You hear about that lately. People with criminal records, people are afraid of them. So what do people need to know about that?
Well, my position on criminal records is that the community is a lot safer when people who have either been arrested and released and still have a record, or convicted and paid their dues to society, if they can get that off their record and get a job and get housing, that makes the community a lot safer than having these people be unemployed and unhoused and have no alternative but to do things that society doesn't approve of. So, the idea that we are safer because we know someone's criminal background, I think, is a fallacy. We're much safer if people who have the criminal background in their past can move on and become productive.
Sure, makes sense. So what resistance do you face when you're trying to expunge these records, and how do you overcome it?
Well, basically, in the 3 or 4 years I've been doing this, the Illinois legislature has actually expanded the number of things that can be removed from someone's record. So I use that as saying that this is the legislative intent. Basically, it really depends on what assistant state's attorneys assigned to these cases. They do go before a judge. And some of them take a kind of the same view as I do, that it is a good thing to clean people's past. Others object to everything, and then you have to convince the judge that someone has changed their behavior.
I see.
This is what I was like then, but this is what I'm like now.
If you made a transformation in your life.
Right. So actually, Wednesday of next week, I have a number of those cases where I'm going to put people on the stand and explain what they were like when they were committing crimes and what they did to change their life around and why they need to get these things off their record.
Is the housing and the jobs the things that most contribute to people changing their life? What contributes to making people change their life?
Yeah, no, those are the two. Most landlords and most employers do criminal background checks and then discriminate against people who have cases in their background. So
how do people with bad backgrounds get housing and jobs? Is it through special programs, or how do they do that?
They essentially have to get lucky, find an employer who's willing to take a chance on them. There are some special programs. There are some employers who go out of their way because they have a belief that people should be given a second chance. And they end up with sometimes the worst jobs, and the better ones are blocked.
Okay. So how can our audience, whether they live in Illinois or elsewhere, support you and the Green Party?
Support the Green Party?
Well, support you and or the Illinois. No, support either and or you and the Illinois Green Party.
Yeah. Well, I don't need support. The Green Party certainly needs support. They can do that financially and go on the website and make a donation. If they're in Illinois, they can volunteer. They could help start a chapter in their area. There are lots of ways to get involved, and they're all pretty well delineated on the on ilgp.org, the website.
ilgp.org.
Right, and it would also give people information as to what the Green Party is up to at this very moment.
Sure, excellent. Thank you kindly for coming on the podcast today and talking about your life and your activities and your political experience and all that good stuff.
Okay, it's been my pleasure.
All the best to you and the Illinois Green Party.
All right. Well, thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.